A typical day for me in the field is to get up early in the morning, and you like to get up early because, first of all, you have early sunlight if you're in a northern place like Alberta. And secondly, of course, it becomes very hot later in the day, and sometimes you find that it's necessary to seek shelter for a couple of hours in the middle of the day because it gets too hot. And that can become dangerous if you're not careful. We would have two or three types of programs we normally do. So perhaps the most fun thing is going out there and looking for fossils. Because when you find a fossil, you realize that you're the first person who's ever seen that fossil. Something that's been buried for 75 million years if it's Dinosaur Provincial Park, and you're the very first person to actually see it. And if you recognize how important it is, you can get really, really excited. And I've been known to drop fossils because I can't believe what I'm seeing. But that aspect has a downside too, because it's fine if you're working in a place like Dinosaur Provincial Park, which is incredibly rich, but many of the sites we work are not incredibly rich. So for example, when we worked in the Arctic of Canada, the fossil resources are very few and very well spread out. So we could literally walk for weeks without seeing a single fossil. And it becomes very tiring when you're walking up to 12, 13, 14 hours a day and you don't find anything. But in the end, guess what? We did find fossils. And so the discovery of dinosaur fossils up on Violet Island was one of those magic moments. And so for the first time, although we didn't have a lot of fossils, it did show us that many of the dinosaurs that we find in Alberta actually spent part of the year way up in the Arctic. And so it was a great scientific discovery. Even though the fossils themselves weren't wonderful by Alberta standards, they were important very scientifically. Once we find fossils, of course, that's just the beginning of the job because you have to take them out. And a classic example is a dinosaur skeleton. You find the skeleton, and it's a few bones sticking out of the side of a hill, and then you have to remove literally tons of rock. And we've moved up to maybe 60 or 70 tons of rock by hand with shovels and picks to get down to the level where the bone is. Once you get down to the level, you still don't know how much of the dinosaur you have because you just had the ends of a few bones sticking out of the side of the hill. So you might find that, in fact, 75 million years ago, a tyrannosaur ate the whole front end of the skeleton, and it's gone. And that's that. Or you might get lucky and find out that most of the specimen is still preserved there. You won't know unless you actually put the effort into it, and that effort can take you several weeks of moving rock and sitting out there in the baking sun with mosquitoes and sandflies bothering you, and so on. So you really have to have some endurance that way. We'll work normally until fairly late in the afternoon and then go back to camp. It doesn't end there because, of course, we're the cooks and bottle washers, and so we have to cook our own suppers, take care of the dishes, and after supper, it doesn't end even then because the specimens you've collected during the day need to be cataloged and boxed up and sorted and so on. So we can have very long days during the summer months, but it's done with a great amount of camaraderie. We have people who are generally very enthusiastic about what they're doing, and you feed off that enthusiasm all the time.